Welcome to the Gen Z Show. I'm James McLamb, your host, and I'm joined today by one of my favorite co-hosts, Maddie Smith. How are you doing, Maddie?
I'm doing well, James. We're just enjoying the new coat of snow up here in Minnesota.
Yeah, it seems like the weather has been schizophrenic at best. We have warm weeks and cold weeks all across the nation. So we had fall spring last week in North Carolina, and now we're back with second winter, which probably won't last but a few days for us, and then we'll go into hopefully a real spring, but I'm sure we have pollen next, which lasts for several weeks. So,
yes,
Maddie, you and I had an opportunity today to interview Mike Fruciano. Now, Mike Fruciano is the president, the founder of Effective Presentations, and his role, his job is helping people design and develop presentations that people want to listen to. This is a man who used to work for Mr. Ziegler and now teaches companies and individuals all across the world how to be more effective in presenting. Now, the reason that we brought him in is because I had a conversation with a parent not too long ago that said, hey, I don't want my child to do public speaking or present in public because it might hurt their self-esteem. And I found so many things wrong with that I said, I got to have someone here who's an expert on this, and let's talk about it. Maddie, what is some of the things that our audience is going to learn today from our conversation with Mike?
I think this conversation could have gone on for a long time. Public speaking's obviously something that we really focus on at Generation Ziegler, but he really kind of kept it down to the basics and really the emphasis of what those little things can mean for your communication skills. So we talked a bit about eye contact. That was a big thing. Those basic things that really esteem confidence in just a simple handshake, and talking about adding pauses and the pace of your speech, filler words, that kind of thing. So he really touched on the things that we're all pretty used to and really leveraged those everyday simple things that we can apply with our communication.
What I really enjoyed, and it's something that I think you and I kind of take for granted because we've had so many years of presenting in public, it's kind of ingrained in us. But really that's understanding that the skill of being able to speak in public, to be able to speak effectively in front of people, can change everything in your career and life. And let's make something that's very clear with our audience. We're not just talking today about speaking in front of a large audience, like giving a speech in front of 100 or 200 or even more people, or even 50 people. But speaking in public may be, how do I speak effectively in a room full of 5 or 6 people that I do not know very well? How do I communicate that type of relation? How does this translate into maybe doing effective sales if I'm going into that? So
right.
this is really a strong interview.
Yeah. And I know even as long as we have been speaking at this point in our lives, I think we both have something we can take away, because of course we all have that constant growth happening, and he even touched on that a bit, which was nice to hear.
Exactly. And I think you're going to find a lot of value in this. And for the parents that are listening, I really encourage you to take to heart a lot of the tips that he gives us throughout this interview that parents can have to help instill this skill in their child and help them learn so that they can be more confident. So without us going any longer, because Maddie and I could start talking about this and we could do a whole 30 minutes as an introduction to this, but let's get you guys straight to our interview with Mr. Mike Fruciano. Mike, welcome to the show. Thank you. Thank you for being our guest on the Gen Z Show, and it's good to see you today.
You too, James. Definitely an honor and a pleasure to be here.
And we've known each other for quite a while. Your son, Evan, came through our Generation Ziegler program, our youth certification program several years ago. I always like to tell new classes after he came through about his story. So I'm going to go on a side trip here and say, because he didn't know he was going until the day before he gets home. He told me he got home from a hockey game. You said, hey, you're flying from Denver to Dallas tomorrow morning. They had to stop on the way to the airport to buy him clothes. He shows up not knowing that the first thing he has to do is speak in front of a group And he was what, 15 at the time?
14.
14. Wow.
Yep. He just
Wow.
turned
He
18.
he still is the youngest that we've ever had. And just completely blew the room away. And these were folks that were, in their 20s on up. I think there was a 26-year-old in that group, and they were just all inspired by that. He was brought in, came in, grabbed him a bite to eat. He was sitting in the back of the room. I said, "Hey man, you're up. If you're ready." He says, "Yeah, I can handle it." And walked up to the front room and just knocked it out of the park. So whenever we do presentations and we do classes from now on, I like to mention this to it. And Maddie had a person in her class that was pretty close to the same age as Evan that also knocked it out. So youth can do this. So, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, is really talking about that value of training them to speak and to present in public. But before we get into that, our audience would like to know a little bit about you and who you are. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your story and who you are and how that would work out.
Oh, perfect. My name is Mike Fruciano, and we tell people here at Effective Presentations that we help people design and deliver presentations that people actually want to listen to. What a novel idea. So we're a corporate training company, and it's just amazing to work with people on their communication skills, because it's so vitally important, and we'll certainly talk about that. And I've been doing that for quite a while. I was blessed to be able to work with the Zig Ziglar organization as well. Back in 2004, I left an insurance company. It's a large national insurance company that I was there for over a decade. And I was a national sales director. I was traveling all the time, just every single week, going to a different office, doing presentations. And then our president retired, he left, and he actually went over to be the EVP over the Ziglar. And he called, he goes, "Hey, I want you to help and run the sales force." And I said, "That would be great. I'd love to do that. Something different, change, and love speaking, love training." So it was just perfect. And it was just great to meet Mr. Ziglar and the whole family, Tom. It's just definitely a quality organization, family. I love everything they represent. And that's how actually Evan got in the Ziglar, the Gen Z. I was speaking to Tom, and he was, "Hey, we got something coming up here in the next day or so." I'm like, this is crazy. But you know what? Let me think about this. I want to put Evan and, the kids through different programs like that. And it was so on the spot. I said, "You know what? Let's just do it." And we got some plane tickets. And next day, Evan was on a plane and had no idea what to expect, but it was just awesome. So it's been a fun road in communication, that's for sure.
Well, related to that, and on what you do with training young corporations to be able to speak effectively, to design and develop presentations that people actually want to hear. I love that. I love that tagline. Let's talk about the value that skill has for youth, because I've actually talked to parents before who are very hesitant about having their children learn to speak in public. They think it may hurt their self-esteem, which, we're going to disagree with, obviously, here on this show. But they just feel like that's just something that they don't want their child to have to go through. But, they say that public speaking is the greatest fear that people have. It's even greater than death. They're more scared of speaking in public than dying, which means that when you're at a funeral, the person that's giving, people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. I mean, that's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, that could be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Let me sit there and handcuff my kids, when they're young, and just, do something to ruin their life. Yeah, that is just, it makes absolutely no sense. I would put communication skills, no matter what industry you're in. Let's say you can be in oil and gas, you'd be in healthcare, engineering, IT, healthcare. It really doesn't matter. I think communication skills, I would put at the very, very top of that list, numero uno. And I truly believe that next skill for that specific industry would have a huge gap between the first skill and the next skill. So being able to be a master communicator, being able to negotiate and get your points across, it means everything in a business and in any industry.
So, as you mentioned, you're listed as like the number one skill, obviously the top soft skill that they can learn and stuff. Let's convince parents that are watching this, and let's convince the youth that are watching this that they need to invest in this. What would you say are the benefits to them right now? You have a son, he's going to be going to college next year. What was the benefits of him learning to speak in public over the 4 years of his high school career?
Man, it changed everything for my kids. Being able to ask for what you want, being able to speak with adults and communicate that way, be able to make eye contact, using your voice effectively, taking all the padding out, the filler words. It's when you meet most kids in high school, all they do is just rattle on the ums, the ahs, the you knows, the likes, the so's. It goes on and on and on. And it takes your credibility and crushes it. When you know how to use the communication process to your advantage, it's not even fair. I look at my kids, and it's so easy for them to get ahead. Anytime that they've gone out there, Evan got his first job at 14, and he worked at this place, and they said, no, we really don't hire people until they're at least 16. And you went in there, met with them, like, man, we're bringing you on, and you don't seem 14 at all. And there was every single job that he's had, it's like you said, it's not even fair, because he goes in there and it's pretty easy to out communicate all the other, young adults that he's competing with. And I would say, looking at the millennials these days, it's interesting because I've never seen such a wide gap between any generation. The people that just, hey, I expect things, there's no accountability, and other people that says, hey, I'm going to go out there and get it. I'm going to make it happen. And there's a pretty wide gap these days.
And that soft skill certainly is going to help them to be a little bit more effective on being able to do this. How young were you when you started presenting in public and speaking in public? You mentioned going into sales, which is obviously is dependent upon presentation skills.
Yeah.
I know Mr. Ziegler, he always talked about the fact that he had presented like 10,000 times before he ever got paid to do it. Yeah. And I asked Tom one time, what did that exactly mean? And he said he was counting all those sales calls that he was having in the living room with people as a presentation skill. So how young were you when you started out doing this?
And I'll tell you, this was really, really tough for me, because I had such a fear of public speaking. I was okay. I was great, hanging out with my friends, going out there, doing a presentation one-on-one or with a family. But I remember the first time I was called upon to speak, I had a full-blown panic attack. And I'll never forget this. It was June 3rd, 1993. I still remember. Wow. I was brand new working for the insurance company, and I was there 1 month. And it was in Southern California. We had our big national sales meeting. The president of the company gets up, he's closing the whole meeting down. And I'm thinking to myself, this is awesome. In about a half an hour, we're going to be able to go to Morton's with our group and have some, that's all I can think about. And then he does this. Hey, we had a new guy start this month and he made a few sales. Where's Mike Fruciano? And all of a sudden my heart just dropped all the way down. And raise my hand. I'm right here. He goes, why don't you come up here and tell us about your sales process? I look at him and say, I said, it's okay. And looking down, hoping to just go away. He goes, no, don't be shy. Come on up. So I walk up to the front. I was looking like I was being led to the guillotine. And he hands me the mic. Tell me about your sales process. So I take the microphone, I look around, and then I start off strong. For 3 minutes, nothing would come out. Well, maybe it was probably 3 seconds. But when you're up there in front of everybody, those 3 seconds seem like an eternity. It just stopped. And so I stumbled through it, and went back and sat down in the back where it was. And one of my friends tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, nice job." I said, "What do you mean, nice job? Are you kidding me?" I said, "Did you see what happened up there?" He said, "Oh, I didn't notice." You didn't notice. And at that time, I thought that every single person in the room was just seeing my heart go, boom, 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 just beating through my chest. And he goes, "No, I couldn't really tell." So I realized at that point, wow, you know what? The way that I feel is nowhere near the way that other people viewed me, because people came up afterward and said, "Hey, that was a great job up there."
Wow.
It was very interesting. So that was the first time that I was ever thrown up there in public. And yeah, I never wanted that to happen again.
Wow. I think we all have that first experience and stuff. I've had it. Maddie, you've probably had it as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember my first time. I joined speech in 10th grade. And I still, to this day, I was more scared to be talking in front of my one speech director than standing in front of a crowd of 5,000 people standing and talking, because I had so much respect for her, but yet it was so intimidating. I think it's scarier talking in front of people you know at the same time.
What tips would you have for young people who they're listening to it and saying, "I'm just too afraid to get up in front of folks.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get me up there." What tips would you give them?
I would recommend getting some coaching. You can go to Toastmasters. That's something that's a really, really inexpensive option. That's what I did after that whole process. I said,
Oh, you
"Man,
went through Toastmasters. Cool.
Yep. I knew that I had to break that fear of public speaking. I know that it was going to completely just devastate my career, because I wanted to be able to move up. I wanted to be able to speak, and that was the problem. It was holding me back drastically, because I was saying, "Hey man, pick somebody else. I'm just glad it's you, and you, and not me that has to be up there and do this next conference." And I knew I needed to be up there doing that. So Toastmasters is a great option, because you can meet every single week. You can go through and be able to take your skills. It's a process. It'll take sometimes a year, 2, 3 years before people really, really feel, and getting a lot better, because there's a lot of people that are brand new, and everybody's the same in Toastmasters. So I did it for several years, and it was good. It was good.
Oh, Maddie, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mike, I was going to kind of point out, I know public speaking, it's a skill, it's a muscle, just like doing anything else. And as we get better at it, as you probably got further along in Toastmasters, you started building up confidence.
Mhm.
But confidence can also, I've been in that boat where I've seen speakers who are almost talking too much, and it comes down to credibility beyond just being able to give a message. So what are some of those kind of hidden skills of being able to communicate, and those hidden areas of communicating beyond just talking? And maybe this can kind of be the intersection of where humility and confidence can collide prior to reaching that level of cockiness and losing credibility. So I was wondering, do you have any thoughts about that, and what constitute communication beyond just being able to speak a clear message?
You see why we have folks like Maddie on? They ask questions that I never would have even thought about. What a great question, man.
Mm-hmm. There's so much that goes into that whole communication process. That's for sure. Most people think, "Hey, I'm going to stand up and speak. All I do all day long is speak. So why do I have to think about that?" But there's so many nuances to communication. I'll give you one example. Even eye contact. When you look at somebody, what are some of the subtleties that's going on with their eyes? When somebody walks into the room and you look at somebody, some people have this bigger than life presence. When they walk in, like, "Wow, who is she?" And other people, they walk in and they're not even noticed. It's that charisma, so many things behind the scenes that really make your message, make you stand out. If you have your eyes down, and you just walk into a room, you're looking around. It just doesn't give you that credibility. So there's so many little things like that. Using your voice. I'll put out of everything with the whole communication process, when you're speaking and delivering your message, I'll put the pause up there at the very top of that list, and on that huge skill of voice. And most people, we're so scared of the pause, we won't even use it. And what we do, and especially millennials these days, we take that and we'll put like, so, but, because we don't want that silence, because that silence is deafening. And when I have that silence, it makes me freak out if I'm the speaker, and it does the exact opposite as you think it does. The audience, the other people in that room, we love the pause. We need it, because when you say something and you're not pausing, you don't give us time to think, how do I utilize that? Especially in a sales presentation, or when you're communicating, if you're on stage or you're communicating to a group, you're throwing things out there. Something of significance. Pause.
I am so glad you brought up eye contact, and that is something that we really preach a lot to when, and Maddie can attest to this when they come through our training about eye contact. I just think if you're not showing that eye contact to me when you're speaking or presenting in public, it really shows that I'm not even interested in talking to you. I'm not really interested in what you have to say. My daughter was with me a few weeks ago from college at church, and when we got through the sermon, her first statement to me was not, "Ooh, that was a great worship service. Ooh, the pastor did really well." She says, I hope his notes got a lot out of his message today, because he sure did talk to them a lot more than he talked to us." Now, having said that, my daughter has gone through the program before. She's heard, and is part of our teaching team now. She's heard me preach this over and over, so she knows that's a sticker point for me. So she knows that, but she was right. He didn't look up nearly as much. And when someone does look up, if they're presenting in public, it's amazing what happens to those who are listening, to the audience that's listening, how much they feel that connection which is going on. It's just incredible. Those little things like that.
Yeah, little things. I mean, even eye contact. If you think you have good eye contact, maybe you're looking around, scanning the room. Hey, this is great. I'm looking at everybody. But you're looking at everybody, spending time with nobody. What you want to do is you want to look at one, but you're looking at all at the same time. So you're going to deliver your message to one person, deliver your message to another person, or if it's one-on-one, it's the same exact skill. This is what I love about communication. When you understand how to use each one of these skills effectively, you can take that and all you have to do is tweak it a little bit for a larger group. So that one-on-one skill, I just hold a little, it's different when you're in a group, but it's the same exact skill.
Go ahead, Maddie.
Oh, thanks, James. So Mike, how do you continue to refine your skills? I mean, we're always lifetime learners, and I'm sure there are still things that you're learning. So what are some things that you're working on improving in your communication skills at this point in your career and at this point in public speaking?
It's always stretching yourself, putting yourself in different situations, trying to learn different things. Obviously, you can read books. There's a lot of things on YouTube that you can go into different seminars. I mean, those are things to develop yourself. And I know Zig said this over and over. Spend more time and money developing yourself than you do even your position. Spend more time for you developing yourself from the inside out. And for me, and this is something I've told my son and daughter, do little things. And this is so weird. He looked at me and said, "Dad, this is crazy." But I challenge him with this every single week. Put yourself in an uncomfortable situation every single week, every day, do something that makes yourself a little bit uncomfortable. When you do that, then when there's times that the whole world's imploding and something's happening, you don't stress out about anything, because you're putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. And one thing that I gave them, we were on an elevator, and normally when you're in an elevator, you're all looking towards the door. So I get in here, I said, all right, I'm going to make you a little uncomfortable right now. So everybody's there, and I'll go in the elevator, the door shut there, and I turn around, I'm looking at everybody else. And my son's like cringing, Dad. I'm just looking at that, trying to keep a straight face. And it's uncomfortable, but it's like, who cares? No big deal. If you're able to do that and keep growing yourself all the time, have fun with it. And that's the thing, is you can have so much fun with the communication process. And when you have fun with that, the one thing I tell people, this is who I am, and this is how we've built my company here. I'll put the entertainment piece when you're speaking, when you're communicating, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. The entertainment piece for me is always at the top, but it's never less than professional. It's always fun, but never less than professional. So people
What do you
think,
mean? What do you mean by entertainment piece?
what I say about entertainment, anytime you can communicate a message, it's a presentation, it could be on the phone, it could be a webinar, but anytime you're communicating, that entertainment piece, and I'm not talking about it has to be jokey or, hey, I got to throw some jokes in. Not at all. That entertainment piece is having the audience say, you know what, James, thank you for letting me enjoy myself while I'm watching this video, while I'm listening to you. Thank you for letting me enjoy myself while I'm doing that. That's the entertainment piece. And I think it's critical that we always think that way, putting that in there, because then you make it fun for people that are listening to your message.
You think a lot of presenters miss that because they feel like what they're doing is more informational and it's too serious for me, and they don't think about that.
I think the vast majority of people miss it.
Yeah, and so it falls flat.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting thought, and it makes me think quite a bit about presentations that I see too much. I'm in I won't say what class it is because they may watch this, but I'm in a presentation where we have webinars periodically, and some of the presenters, when they do that, are just so boring that it causes me to just start drifting off and texting and cut off my screen so that they don't see that I'm, zoning out. So, hey, let's transition into that. We're now moving out of where presentations are just mainly a live only type thing, and that we've gone into virtual presentations on that. What skills do people need to have to be able to do that? I mean, Maddie, last fall, you had a whole series of things, of interviews and opportunities to speak in public, and it was all well, actually, I'd say for you, most of 2020 was speaking virtually. Wouldn't you agree to that, Maddie?
Yeah, I would definitely say a lot of our classes are that way too. A good majority of our classes are primarily Q&A or pre-recorded lectures, and both of them can get pretty boring. It's hard to follow along. And one thing that I found myself doing is sometimes you're in Q&A panels and it feels like you have to force yourself to ask the panelist a question. And there's that Zoom fatigue, and there's also that finding a question to ask a presenter fatigue, because there are times when a presenter really just doesn't hit that message and doesn't connect with you. And I think it's hard to get personable over the screen exponentially virtually compared to in person too.
Mike, how would you suggest battling that Zoom fatigue, that virtual fatigue, which now so many youth are encountering because everything that they're doing is that way, or the majority of them anyway?
Yeah, right. I know that speaking certainly through Zoom meetings, through a camera, it's a lot harder. It's a much harder presentation to deliver than when you're live. When you're live, it's so easy to see people. You're right there. You have a pulse that's right there of the room, and you still can with Zoom, but it's you're going to work a lot harder with Zoom. Definitely harder. It's not, you can't just take a back seat when you're presenting. You have to be on, and there's a lot of things that you can do, even set up. And I think people are getting a little bit better now because they've been on so many Zoom meetings, but just watching the setup, most people's cameras, they're not at eye level. They're the laptop and it's shooting up, and you're looking up there and you see their ceiling, and it makes it look like you're looking down on the other person or the audience. So making sure when you're presenting, have your camera, if it's a laptop, move it up, put a box underneath it to make sure your camera is at eye level. That's critical right there. The next thing is your voice, making sure you have a decent microphone. Most everybody, we just use the mics from our laptop, or maybe it's a Logitech camera that you're using. Make sure that you have a good mic. That's probably one of the most important things, is the sound. If your
I feel
sound's
like,
not really dialed in, yeah, it's not.
yeah.
Right.
We struggle with a lot of our sound on this show. Initially, we had to invest in mics that actually we felt, pretty confident that we were going to be able to get a sound on this.
So
And then lighting is another one, that getting the lighting set. You can do that really inexpensive. Here at our office, we have these lights. They were $18 on Amazon.
Hmm.
And we have two of them. They go on the back of the computer and then they go up. And the lights, we have the smart bulb, and then on the phone you just pull up the app and you can dial those lights in, so they're all sorts of different colors, and just to see what works best for your environment wherever you're presenting.
yeah, I definitely notice big difference in people. You can tell kind of who wakes up right before class and just sits in bed, which I'm not gonna lie, sometimes me, and you can tell who has their nice formal setup.
Right.
So Mike, I'm kind of curious, there can be a stereotype of that salesman sort of communication, where it's all communication and really not much substance or content. And I don't think that's often the case, but I think it can be the case, or at least the perceived situation of how a person communicates. So how do you cope with having this strong communication skill, especially being able to talk, but not making people feel alienated? How do you keep it personal and make sure the content and the message is still about them and not just about having a flashy personality and being entirely charismatic, and making sure you still have that genuine authenticity and sincerity?
Yeah, I would put that at the very top, making sure that if you're genuine, people trust you, and that's one of the biggest things right there. And I'll put that at the very, very top. That whole process is everything we do. It's built for trust and be able to connect. The thing is knowing your audience. Who is your audience? Who are you speaking to? And what is your message? Really thinking those parts when you're communicating. And if it's interactive, it's making sure that we're asking the right questions, not just taking what I have and regurgitating it. And a lot of people do this. We'll put a PowerPoint up, or I'll have my notes, and it seems like, and I'm going to put most presenters, when you're live using a PowerPoint or on some Zoom meetings, they're just doing a book report. And that's painful. It's hard to trust somebody, believe in them, when you're seeing everything that they're speaking about as well, or they're just going on and on and on. It sounds like Charlie Brown's mom. Wah, 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 wah. And when that happens, we check out, because it's not about me. You don't care about me. You don't care of some of the things that are important.
What are what specifically does it look like to be genuine? And yeah, I know you kind of talk about going through this background process of making sure you know who your audience is, but what specifically, while you're presenting, does it look like to include your audience along with your presentation? And what does it look like to make sure that it is about them?
Well, it would be about the content and the way that we're going to deliver that, but making sure the content is relevant. And when you're looking at that, I would always put yourself in their shoes and think, what would I need to know? And when I'm working with people on their content, on their message, on their stories, those type of things, it's telling yourself, so what? Why would they care? And then answer that. And I love being able to pull that onion back layer by layer by layer, and until you get to content that's really good. And it's important for them, not just things that are on the surface that people can care less about. A lot of times we get into the weeds, into the details, people don't care. They're everybody that's watching, they're like, what's in it for me? Nobody cares about the presenter. Nobody cares about, it's the information that's coming to me that we care about.
Yeah, I think that's it. Humility goes a long way. And acknowledging it as leader, as leaders, it's not our job to have people find inspiration. It's us. It's really to show them what they have to offer and what we can maybe add to that and give a little piece to that. Add to that pie, add an extra little ingredient or cherry on top. So I really like that response. It's interesting to hear that and reassuring to hear how you kind of approach your messaging.
So Mike, if we have a parent that's watching, they're viewing this, they're excited, you've got them convinced that they need to work with their child's early high school. Toastmasters may not be an option for them. What practical ways can they start now to get their son or daughter to present better, to speak better, and therefore instill more confidence in them so that they are really presenting themselves in a positive manner so that they have the same kind of results that your son did, that Evan did when he went to get that job interview, and they're like, there's something special about this kid. We got to hire him.
Yeah. I think it's having the parents at that age, it's having them be able to work with their kids and to challenge them. And that's something that, I got to watch my parents communicate, but they really didn't sit down with me as much, going through each skill that I really, really wish I would have had as a kid, because I would have been able to got rid of my fear of public speaking when I was a kid. And then I wouldn't have to go through, my early stages of, employment and really just be devastated when I was up there in front of a group or, those type of things. I think having the parents challenge their kids, just when you go to somebody's house, my kids, it's simple. When they go to somebody's house, they go up to the parents immediately and shake their hands and introduce themselves. And I can't tell you how many kids come to our house and they immediately just go right up to the rooms, or they never even look and make eye contact with the parents. And it's like, well, what respect level do I have for the kid? It probably wouldn't be as high as somebody that went up to the parents, shook their hand, make good eye contact. And that's really important. So these are a lot of things the parents could and should be working with their kids. And when you see your kids just rattling off, going on and on and on, and they have a million filler words all the way through, and they never have a period because their sentences go on connecting, having just stop, period, new sentence. If they're able to get rid of that, the communication just goes through the roof for that child.
When you said that, the very first thing that came to mind was, I have two daughters. My oldest daughter is now a junior in college. She's 20. And we required, when she was in high school, for anyone who wanted to go out with her, they had to come talk to me first. They had to ask me beforehand. Couldn't just show up at the door, and they had to come and talk to me. And I remember the very first young man he won't be watching this, so he won't care. A very first young man who came in, and he never made eye contact with him. I brought him into my office, I made the whole situation intimidating to begin with because I wanted to be intimidating. I'm her dad. I'm supposed to be intimidating.
Right.
So I brought him in there and I asked him a few things and stuff, and he never looked up. His handshake felt so weak. He mumbled, and I had to repeat it. And when they went down to, just some fast food place for a few hours and came back, it was nothing really major and nothing going to movies or anything like that, just a quick down the road or something. And my daughter got back. She says, "So Dad, what do you think?" I said, "Well, you tell me what you think." She says, "Well, based on the way he looked when he came out of your office, I'm going to say no from now on when he asks me out." And it was the same thing. No confidence at all in this. So one last thing, I want to get some free guidance and some consulting here. I deal with having a very rich and Southern accent that I'm proud about. And there's a lot of folks who maybe it causes them to feel self-conscious about themselves because of the accent they have. Maybe a Minnesota accent. I don't know. You guys may have
Our
something
accents
up
are
there.
beautiful. I will stand behind that.
So help those who may have some self confidence issues with their accent, because some of us just we can't help it, that we just grew up and this is what we heard. It's our formative years, that is what trained us to speak. And even though I understand there are certain words that I have problems with, and I need to make sure that I enunciate them correctly, it still pops up and it still comes on. So help me out.
I never have people change who they are, their accents. I mean, that's who they are. There's certain things that you can work on. If there's words that you can't pronounce, there's like Chris Dunham. He was a speaker at Ziegler. And Chris was telling me a story. He came from India years ago, and there's certain words, V's, that he couldn't pronounce properly, and he would work on that over and over and over. And I remember him telling me one time there were certain words that he just pulled out of his vocabulary and had other words that would replace it, because he had such a hard time pronouncing just a few words. He replaced them. But it's doing it over and over and making sure that you get it down. But I never tell people to change their accent. I mean, that's who you are. I love it. But there's certain things, if there's words that you're having a hard time, you can go through and work on them. Even voice warm-ups. There's a sheet that I give different folks to go through some of our workshops, that if you're going to have a webinar or a meeting, there's things that you can go all the way down, and they're set up to mechanically work on your voice to really get your voice warmed up. And I remember Ziegler, when I was going out and watching him present, he would go into his hotel room and just do his voice warm-ups for over 30 minutes before he went on stage. And I'm like, wow, that was really interesting to be able to see that. But it's making a little bit of effort. And so if there's an important presentation that you have, spend a little extra time doing that. Or like, but your accent, James, I love different accents. And we work with a lot of people from India that do have a hard time. And with their accents, when they're going on and on and on, they really get to go fast. Or from Asian, I would say for them, slowing it down. Because if we're having a hard time hearing it and they get going really, really fast, if you're speaking to all Asians or all Indians, you can do that. They would understand that. But if you're speaking to somebody that doesn't have that background with that language, you slow it down, then it's really simple and easy to be able to get your message and communicate it across. Pausing, slowing down makes all the difference.
And a lot of folks assume that Southerners, that we speak slow, but that's a stereotype, in that I find that most Southerners, we speak rather fast. And because we have an accent, people have a hard time understanding this. You get, on television, they'll have the stereotypical Southerner speaks real slow and like this. I encounter that. I have relatives who are like that. I had neighbors that I grew up with that were like that. But the majority of them, they tend to speak at a rapid pace. And so slowing down is a significant thing. So if our audience wanted to connect with you to learn more about how to really be an effective presenter, where can they go? What can they do? What kind of resources can they get?
Effectivepresentations.com. That is our website. We have a lot of resources. We have blogs written on all the different subjects. And if somebody's in 14 years old, if you want to get fast tracked, and if there's not Toastmasters, you're too young to be part of that, we do have virtual workshops and live workshops. And we probably over 100 people that are 14, 15, young kids. mixed in there over the years, and it's highly effective. So we do 2-day workshops on communication, and we do virtual presentations as well. So all in really small groups. And like I said, Toastmasters, it's a really inexpensive thing. Love that. It gets you practicing and something that's consistent. But I tell people going through one of our 2-day class, it'll probably take a year or 2 off of Toastmasters like that and put you at that level. So it really depends on how fast that you want to really work on your communication.
If you haven't done it yet, I would encourage you to bring Evan into some of your classes if you have that young audience and show them what is possible, because you've raised a good boy there. He's a good, strong young man, which I have a lot of respect for. Hopefully I'm trying to get him on to be one of my co-hosts on one of my upcoming calls. I texted him yesterday and hadn't heard back from him. I need to follow back up today and see if he's available.
Yeah, he'd be great. He'd love to do it. And I have put Evan through our workshops, and he's going to be going through the next one in April here in Denver.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's already so good. He's going to be awesome. He's going to be really awesome. I can't wait till he gets on this side of the country when he comes to school over near me, that I can bring him in and utilize him a little bit more. Get him down to the conference that we do that Maddie went to in Asheville, North Carolina, whenever we're able to have live events back at Asheville, North Carolina. So,
right. Yeah, he'll be back there. He's moving down there in August.
Well, Mike, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for really dispelling this myth and helping that presentation and public speaking needs to be something to be feared for you, that it needs to be something, and instead of reaffirming that it needs to be something that's embraced, that parents need to encourage it, and understanding that it can change everything, that skill can really set them apart. So I appreciate that. And I thank you for your time, and all of the information, his website and any of those things will be listed down below in the show notes. So if you look down, you'll find that. Just click more information and you'll find it on the YouTube channel. And we'll be sure to provide all the links to the information so that people can provide it. So thank you guys for your time today. And thank you again, Mike, for being our guest.
You too. Have a blessed day.